How's it going, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Sip Talk. I'm your host, Pete Sippis. My brother Xander joining me today. And our guest on this episode, Pick Boy himself, a staple of early 2000s Nickelodeon television. Jeff Sutphen joins the show this afternoon. Jeff, how are you?
You know, I can't wait to see what happens next. So I think that's probably a good place to start. Guys, listen, thanks for having me on. It's always awesome to meet fans, the true fans up front. And I know you guys are super fans. You guys come from a family of super fans, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
Peter, what did you tell this guy?
I told him that we were, in the audience. We won the bucket of bucks. No, wish could have won the bucket of bucks, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. First, I just wanted to ask you, early on in your career, before you got into You Pick Live and started working for Nickelodeon, was working in television, specifically kids television, something that you kind of thought, yeah, I'm going to get into this, or did you just kind of stumble upon it right out of college?
I always knew I wanted to work in television. Kids television necessarily wasn't like, oh, I really want to work in kids television. Now, coincidentally enough, my college commencement speaker was Mr. Rogers. So for me, it really kind of has this full circle effect, which I think I look back on that now and go like, oh, who would have thought? But yeah, I was always working in TV, picking up as a freelancer. You just pick up job after job and you go where it goes. And you hopefully get to a point in your career where you can be selective and say like, oh, I don't want to take that. That's not me. But, early on, I was just like, my now wife was working at Nickelodeon and she said, hey, they're staffing up on the show. I was unemployed, gainfully unemployed at the time. And so she said, do you want to come in for an interview? She begged her boss to give me an interview. She had ulterior motives. She wanted a ring. And so it all worked out for all of us. But no, so she, and I remember when I got the job on You Pick Live, I was hired as a producer on the show. And that it was one of these things where I remember distinctly having a conversation with my parents on the phone, and they're like, well, do you like it? And I'm like, yeah, it's a cool place, but I couldn't see myself being here for, like more than a year and a half. And here we are currently today. I mean, I'm currently working on a Nick Jr. show right now that I'm, show running and executive producing. So the more I've done outside of kids TV, the more I realize the only thing I want to do is kids TV, because I have the maturity level of an 8-year-old. And it's been a really solid fit for me. So the answer is now all I want to do is kids TV. But at the time, I was just like, yeah, it's another gig. It's another paycheck.
So who came up with the idea of Pick Boy? What was that meeting like? Was it just one of the producers going, Jeff, we have the perfect role for you?
So it's funny because Pick Boy, like I said, I was hired on the show as a segment producer. And we were all, it was a very small team. There was not a huge staff. There was just a handful of us that were going to go out and put on this live daily show. And we all bit off more than we can chew. None of us had ever worked in live TV. So we were all kind of, building the airplane and flying it at the same time. And what was crazy is my boss came to me. He's like, hey, look, we want to do this superhero named Pick Boy, and he's like, it's nothing really. Superheroes or superpowers is just, he can pick things. It was all just kind of very loose based. Yeah. And I'm like, he goes, do you want to do it? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, what kid doesn't want to be a superhero growing up, first and foremost. Secondly, I'm very comfortable in a full body leotard. And I don't know if I've spent the better part of my adult life in, spandex. And so I was like, yeah, I got nothing to lose here. Let's do it. And the big thing was Pick Boy was really built into the show out of legality necessity, because you couldn't have Brent and Candace pick a kid because it showed favoritism, and Brent and Candace couldn't read prize copy because that was endorsing. So they needed some know-nothing background character to go, I randomly pick you, you win a Schwinn bicycle. And so we have a caller. Hello, caller. Sorry.
You wanted the Schwinn bicycle.
You want a Schwinn bicycle. And so Brent and Candace couldn't do that. So they were like, hey, do you want to do this? I was like, great, done. And so what was really funny was when the show went live, I was still producing and I was in a full body leotard as Pick Boy. And one of my jobs was I had to do all the pre-interviews with all our guests and celebrities. Say like, oh, here's what's going to happen. Welcome to the show. We're going to do this, da, da, da. And I'd walk them through the entire thing. And I was always so busy, I never had time to change. So I'd walk into this conference room and like Will Ferrell would be in there, and I'd like walk in and be like, all right, man, here's what's going to happen. And they're like, if you have publicists, agents, everyone's around, they'd just be looking at like, who is this guy? And I'm like, oh, sorry. And I'd take like the mask off and I'd like, yeah, it's like, I'm Jeff. I work on the show. And what was genius out of that is I could get any celebrity to do anything on the show. And I can't remember who it was, but I pitched them this idea. I'm like, all right, so we're going to do this. I'd love for you to do this, da, 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 da. And the guy looked across the table at me and goes, if you're a producer on the show and you have to wear that, I'll do whatever you ask me. So it worked to our advantage. Like my batting average was like through the roof of getting celebrities to do whatever. So
that's another thing I want to talk about. Going into this interview, I just started looking up YouTube and finding old clips, and stuff started coming back to me. He had a duet with a Nelly Furtado, which might have been the most 2000s thing I've ever seen in my life.
I'm like a bird. I got to fly away.
But the thing I wanted to ask was like, were there any times where celebrities would just like walk in and go, oh shit, there's like a bunch of kids here. I'm still in like my early 20s. I'm just a random celebrity. Like what do I do? Like, this is insane.
I don't like, once we got established, I think celebrities had a little bit of better understanding of what they were getting into. When they came there very early on, it was sometimes they didn't get it. But the best part about being in kids TV is, and especially if the celebrity gets it, they realize like people will do anything for kids. And especially if you're a parent. So if you had a celebrity who was a parent who got like that whole thing, they would do whatever. And they came in, they were ready to play. That was the big thing. If they came in with their guard up and like they were all decked out in makeup and hair, you knew like, we're not going to get much out of this person. But if they came in like blue jeans, t-shirt, you were like, all right, they're here to play. We're going to get it. Jeff Probst is a great example. At that point, Survivor, was the biggest show on TV. It was still in its early seasons, and it was just this phenomenon. And we would always get the cast-offs on. And at the end of the season, we booked him on the show. Now, he came to the show, and he later told us this. He had no idea what he was doing there. He was like, his agent booked it for him, and he was just like, I'm a 40-year-old guy, whatever. I don't have kids. I don't know what I'm doing. He came, he had a great time. He was awesome. He played along with everything we wanted to do. He got back to his hotel like an hour later, and his phone was ringing off the hook from all his college buddies who have kids. And they were like, my kid saw you on, and immediately he saw the impact that show had. And so much that every time he was in New York, he would call us and say, hey, I'm in New York. Can I come by the show? And so he became like that guy, and there was a few celebrities that were like that. They understood what we were doing and that we weren't taking ourselves very seriously, and that we were, that we were low budget, and we were borderline public access is really what it boils down to.
The Jeff Probst episodes, I just had a major flashback as you're telling that story, because we're a big Survivor family. Xander and I here love Survivor, especially those early seasons growing up. And this just came back to me being stunned as a kid on our big box TV, seeing Jeff Probst on You Pick Live. And I couldn't understand, like, wait, what's he doing on You Pick Live? He's supposed to be Thursday night at 8 while we're eating pizza from Wayland House of Pizza. Like, this is insane. So I just remember that blowing my mind as a kid. So as a producer on the show, and because, the show lasted 5 seasons, 400 episodes. And as a kid watching, I personally probably wouldn't understand the difference between an early episode, like episode 1 to episode 400. But as a producer, did you guys always try to like keep it fresh and explore new ideas, or did you usually stick to like the same formula every time because it worked?
Yeah, that was, for us, the team that I had, or that we had, that was on that show, these are lifelong friends. I talk to these people almost on a weekly basis.
Including the cow?
Including the cow. Yeah, the English translation, it's a little rough. I don't spend a lot of time on the phone with the cow, but that's a good question. No, we always challenged ourselves. I went in, this is no joke. I went into every day saying, I don't know how we're going to pull today off. And I finished every day saying, I can't believe we pulled today off. There's no way we're going to pull tomorrow off, because we never settled. It was never like, oh, we found our groove, let's just ride it. It was always like, well, we did that. How do we do it better? So that was one of the things. And when you're doing something every day, you also need to keep it fresh for yourself. So there was a bunch of little side games that we were all playing that the audience never knew about. We I don't think I've ever told this. We used to give like Brent, Candace, Antonio, myself, we would give each other words that you had to work into the show, and you got points for whoever got their word in first. You got points for like the best use. And so there was always just ways. So you would see like there's times when, like I drop just these absolutely asinine sentences to get like, Toledo into the sentence. And you would just see Brent be like, because I got my word out first. So there was a bunch of those little things. And especially at the end when we knew when they had canceled us or retired, however they want to say it. At that point, like we knew we were going into our final stretch. Brent and I were off the rails. I mean, it became an unspoken thing every day. I'm going to get you to break, and I'm just going to get you to get into a laughing fit that you will not be able to recover from. So there was a huge game. There was the game within the game happening every day. But that was the thing, is like, it was all fun. Everybody on the team was, from cast, crew, staff, everybody knew we were a family. We were spent every day together for all those years and 400 plus episodes. I tell you, I mean, I've been very fortunate in my career to have done a ton of different things, and I've had some really cool, fun shows that I've had good runs with. You Pick Live is probably the thing I remember the most from. And I know that sounds crazy, like 400 episodes. I can recall so much of that. Whereas Brain Surge, we did 120 episodes over 3 years. And I can be like, I remember a lot of it, but not the way I remember You Pick. Brain Surge was also like 5 episodes a day. So,
I remember Brain Surge because I was probably one of the last shows I watched before I kind of like aged out of that. And I remember just yelling at my TV, "No, you moron, you're walking the wrong path." It was obviously straight, left, right is. And I would just be so frustrated, me being like 11. And then I realized probably shouldn't be yelling at this kid 4 years younger than me on TV. I think I should just watch Sports Center.
Yeah.
We're good.
Well, the other thing too, you have to remember is on Brain Surge, the viewer always had that high and wide shot. But when you were down looking at it and the path went away from you, it was much different. Like I would watch it and go, when I was standing there at the stage, I'd be like, "Oh man, you're screwed, kid. You're never getting that." And then when I watch on TV and you saw that high and wide shot, I was like, "Oh yeah, no, it's so easy. It's right there."
I'm an armchair quarterback. What can I say?
We all are.
Xander, do you have any You Pick Live specific questions or?
Yeah.
Oh, here they come. Here comes a hard. This is where I get into trouble. Xander's
no, it's not like a hard question. Right?
I never put you on the hot seat, Jeff.
Well, no, I never really
limits.
I never really considered it as like you were basically the age I was now, and what it seems like is you were just like dicking around with your friends for a couple hours every single day.
Yeah.
And like I never really thought of it like that until you're like, yeah, I'd get Brent to laugh and he'd be laughing in a laughing fit on live TV, and there was nothing he could do about it. Like that sounds hilarious. Like I don't know. I never really thought of it like you just dicking around.
It was. I mean, and I think that was part of the charm of the show. We, right from day one, we never had a big budget, and we never tried to make it look like we had a big budget. We were like, "Oh, this is Scotch tape and toothpicks, fine." And I don't know if you remember Roger. He was our stagehand. He was just a huge guy, and he was legitimately the guy who would fix the lights and whatever. And, he played the occasional character Reginald McDew. He had like the big afro wig, and but like
this is all coming back to me now.
Yeah. And we would call for a lighting effect, and it would be Roger standing with his finger on the light switch, just going click, 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 click. I mean, like that was what we did, and none of us ever felt like. And I know I said it earlier. The thing I loved the most about the show was if someone was flipping through the channels and came across that, they'd be like, "I got to stop and watch. I don't know what's happening here, but I got to stop and see what's going on here because it was just insanity. And that was the thing. It's like we worked our tails off. I mean, we busted our ass every day. It took, that was a 12-hour workday to put that on every day.
And they have Antonio running through walls to get those orange VHS tapes out. I mean,
yeah. And those were my favorite things. The Wild Tonio, when we dress him up in the stunt, and Pick Boy was his stunt coordinator. Fun fact about Wild Tonio, 99% of those crashes were real because he could never make it. Like he'd be on skates, he didn't know how to skate, so he would fall before he got to like the tower of glasses. He got hurt on every single one of those, and not like it was never planned. He was, there was one he actually made it into the control room, and in his celebration, he went, yeah, and he like pulled his leg up and hit his thigh right on the corner of the desk and gave himself a huge Charlie horse before he passed the tape off. So even when he made it to the control room, he still got hurt. So those are always my favorite. Like the Pick Boy and Antonio relationship to me was the best. We had always pitched a side segment that they never did called PB&A, which was just the two of us going out in Times Square just making a mess of things. But they never did anything with it. So
it's never too late.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I do owe him a phone call.
Another question. Was it kind of weird? So like we grew up watching the shows that you were like playing and everything. Was it weird because it would be like me now going back to Nickelodeon and working for them, and like whatever shows were being, like whatever's being run right now probably wouldn't resonate with me. I'm not exactly sure what cartoons you really grew up on, but like, was it weird watching these new to you cartoons as like a 25-year-old?
No, I guess for me, like I didn't have cable TV growing up, so I never watched Nickelodeon. I mean, I knew of Nickelodeon. I knew Double Dare because of some weird thing how they broadcasted on Fox, and so like I'd watch Double Dare when I was waiting for the school bus in the morning. But like I didn't know, I knew the legacy, I knew what Nickelodeon was, but I didn't go in there with this previous like, hey, this, I got to preserve the glory days of Nickelodeon. And that was a big part of it. Like we never went in there. There was never this is our initiative. This is our agenda. Our thing was like, if this is funny to you and funny to me, it's going on the show. And that was the thing. It was like, and that's, like the show I'm working on now, Ryan's Mystery Playdate for Nick Jr. I'm in a great position. I get to, I'm the showrunner, and it's the same thing. I put together the team. I run it just like we ran You Pick Live. Whoever has a funny idea, we unpack it and go, that's a funny idea. Let's put it in the script. And I'll have people go, it's never going to it's going to get cut. And I go, I'm not going to censor ourselves. Let's let, if it's funny and it can get through, let's keep it, So yeah, I mean, like I didn't have that history of Nickelodeon that I felt I had to, uphold, but there is a huge pride when you start working at Nickelodeon and you see the legacy that's there. And a big part of what was drilled into my head when we started was, this is a safe place for kids. Parents can put their kid in front of a TV and know that there's not going to be anything questionable. While they make dinner, here, kids, this will keep you occupied. So there was a sense of pride, and I took that very seriously. You never want to do anything that we always refer to as imitatable behavior. You never want to do anything that all of a sudden some kid tried to imitate you and they broke their back. So
you were wrestling a cow.
Well,
no, that was Garbaggio.
Garbaggio, right? He was, and that was, he didn't wrestle. He was cookies and milk. He wrestled the cookies and milk. So no, but that, let's be honest, Xander. Did you have a cow at home you could wrestle? So see, it's not imitatable behavior.
No, but he had cookies and milk he could have wrestled.
Everybody wrestles with the cookies and milk, especially now. I'm at an age.
Peter does own a cow costume.
Yeah. I do own a cow costume. When you have a history project, you have to dress up as your paper on something that impacted colonialism, and you write about smallpox, you buy a cow costume. And you know what? Really came in handy during Chick-fil-A Cow Day. I got so many coupons. It was great.
Absolutely. I mean, you're really shortchanging yourself if you don't have some sort of livestock costume in your closet.
Oh, exactly. See, you see, Jeff, this is why we're just connecting. I grew up watching You Pick Live. I see there's a cow standing in the middle of the set for no good reason. And 10 years down the road, I think, you know what?
This is
can be a cow standing. Yeah,
this is a career option. Cow.
Yeah. This is
the
power of television.
The cow really, oh God. there's a love-hate relationship between me and the cow.
Uh-oh.
Because the cow, again, we had no budget on the show. So it was one of those things, we opened a storage closet in the hallway of floor 37 and we found a cow costume. We're like, this is great. We should put it on the show. We had no reason for it. The cow was just like, it came out of the fact that it was free, buried in a closet. We're like, we'll use this. The cow never really did anything other than go, walk on, go moo. We hit a cow sound effect until they sent the cow to interview Brad Pitt at a junket. And that was this thing where they're like, well, the cow needs to talk. And they said, Jeff, get in the cow costume and go do it. And I said, I don't want to do the cow. I'd send Pick Boy. It only makes sense. Brad Pitt's good looking. Pick Boy's good looking. Let's do that. And they're like, no, we're doing the cow. I was like, ah. So I got inside the cow costume, interviewed Brad Pitt. The interview ended up getting a ton of traction. It was on like Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood. It blew up. And then the cow became like, anytime the cow spoke, it was me inside the cow costume, which I don't know if that's public knowledge. But, and then any other day when it was just on set, it was find an intern. We had one person, there was a PA on the show. His job, one of his jobs every day was to find someone to put in the cow costume. Everybody at Nickelodeon at some point in time was the cow on You Pick Live. It became like, oh, I can be the cow. If you want to climb in that German-fested costume that smells like a hockey player's jock, you're more than welcome to climb in. We'll see you every day at 5. So
I grew up in the wrong generation. I would have volunteered that every day. It's like, actually, I brought mine from home. I'm ready to go. But after You Pick Live, Pick Boy was still a staple of many kind of Nickelodeon specials and programs. One thing I remembered, especially now because we have an election coming up, was Pick Boy as part of the Kids Pick the President campaign.
sure.
And I was wondering, and think about it, as an adult, I never realized like what kind of impact a campaign like that could possibly have. So I was wondering just what kind of went into that whole Kids Pick the President campaign and what went into it for you as this kind of serious thing like an election, but you're also dressed up as Pick Boy.
Sure. For me, I guess like I didn't have much to do with the production end of Kids Pick the President. They had asked me, hey, do you want to do this? Again, I rarely miss an opportunity to shoot my mouth off. So I was like, yeah, sign me up. A microphone and a captive audience. I'm in. And I get to wear a leotard. And you're paying me? Wow. So for me, the thing with Pick Boy was I always had to find that balance. I never wanted to take things serious. And obviously, like, as you pointed out, picking the president, the democracy, it's a big ordeal. So it was always finding that balance of getting the messaging across that the network wanted, but also doing it in the voice that I had developed with, the UPick team. That was always the thing. It's like every writer that ever wrote for Pick Boy, they would always come to me and just be like, hey, look, we know you're going to put this in your own voice. I was rarely using a script because I can't read. I'm one of those who slip through the cracks. I'm kidding. That's not the message we're trying to get out there to the kids. No, it was always kind of I worked better in here's the overall, start here. There's some business here, land here, however you want to get. And that was the other thing. Nickelodeon was always very kind in working with me, that once they trusted that I wasn't going to go down the rabbit hole. And they said like, hey, yep, put it in your own voice. We know there's a very unique voice for that. So and it carried through in other things, besides Kids Pick the President. Anytime we did any athletic stuff, like the Olympic stuff, like I'm a relatively athletic guy. I'm not saying I'm going pro or anything like that, but I always had to pretend, like when we're going out on skates and we're playing hockey with the Islanders, like I had to pretend like I couldn't skate when it's just like, yeah, come on, let's really dance here. So I played a little bit of pond hockey in my day. So that was always weird, is that ability to want to do something good, but still have to, slip and fall and crash all the time.
How many Super Bowls did you go to?
God, I think it's eight or nine. It's 8 or 9. I lost track at the end. I started with Super Bowl 38, and I did a few years in a row. Then I stopped because UPick Live wasn't there. I think I was down for like a year or two. And then the NFL called Nickelodeon and said, we want him back. The NFL asked to have me back. And that's how then I had a run of like 6 years in a row or something like that. And I ended with Super Bowl 50, where they made that god awful gold uniform, which was just, oh God. But it was awesome. I loved every bit of it. Because now here's a fun fact, tying it back to the cow, exclusive. Originally, due to the success of me getting in the cow costume, doing interviews with Brad Pitt and the cast of Harry Potter, and me being very vocal about not wanting to do that, they said, we're going to send the cow to the Super Bowl Media Day. And I said, I don't want to do Media Day as the cow. They're like, well, you're doing it. I said, great. And so we went to Super Bowl 38, Nickelodeon for CBS. Kids take over, Nickelodeon takes over the Super Bowl. And I show up to the production office the morning I'm supposed to go down to Media Day. And they said, my boss comes over to me and goes, hey, you got the Pick Boy costume? I'm like, yeah, it's in my hotel room in the closet. And he goes, go get it. And I'm like, why? He goes, the cow costume's lost in the mail. And I'm like, oh, darn. My plan worked. And so I ran into into my hotel room, changed, come out, and I went, and they didn't have a credential for me. And so they were standing in the production office. They're just going like, here, take this. And they hand me some credential of a bald guy with a full beard. He's like twice my age. And his name was Nathan Nelson. And I was just like, this looks nothing like me in a million years. And like, just go with it. So I put the credential on backwards underneath my cape. So, and I just was like, and they're like, well, are you going to change and go? No, I'm like, no, I'm going to go like this. Because if I go in my civilian clothes, they're going to stop me, but no one stops a superhero walking in. So I walked right in, and they never asked to see my credential. Everyone was like, what? And that was now you look at Media Day nowadays, and it's an absolute circus. I have been credited for creating what Media Day is now today, where it's just bedlam. That's because of me. Prior to me, it was always a very serious, stuffy event, but I went in there and was just like, no one expected it to be what it was. It was all an accident. It was never meant to be that way. And it was awesome. And so what happened was then the credential, the reason I remember the name is because I never give my real name. They're like, oh, what's your name? I'm like, Pick Boy. And I'm like, 2 words, capital P, capital B. They're like, no, what's your real name? And I'm like, it's Pick Boy, superhero. And it's like, duh. And so it was driving the reporters crazy. So at one point I was like packed up. I was circled up by all these reporters, and they're asking me all these questions. And I noticed one guy's like leaning towards my back, and he's like looking around. And later in the Chicago Tribune, it said Nickelodeon's Pick Boy, also known as Nathan Nelson, because he saw the credential under my cape and he reported me as Nathan Nelson. So, which is such a great Peter Parker, Clark Kent, like alliteration superhero name, that Nathan Nelson became a name we used in UPick Live all the time. Like, even if it was like, oh, we were presenting a giant novelty check, it was signed by Nathan Nelson. We always work Nathan Nelson into scripts. So that was really how the Super Bowl thing came about. And I have so many great memories from the Super Bowl. You can stop me anytime because I'm rambling, but
this is the best content we've ever got. Don't stop.
So I went into the first year. It was kind of like there was a mixture of like, it was, who is this guy? Oh my gosh. What? And it became this huge ordeal. The second year I went back, there was like half of the reporting corps was like, oh, this jackass, he's here to make fun of all of us, which was never the plan. I wasn't making fun of you. I was making fun of me and my stupidity about not knowing anything about what we're doing. And there was reporters that got that and loved it and embraced it. And then there was a core that were like, like, this guy's making a mockery of everything. And I remember it was one of the years that shockingly the Patriots were there, because they hardly ever make it to the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think I've been to almost every single one of the Super Bowls that they've been at. And I was talking to Mike Vrabel. I don't know if he had kids or whatever, but he knew who I was. And I interviewed with him, and he had it was great. We were high-fiving each other, and it was at the end, I went, hey man, camera's off. I was like, hey, thanks a lot. He's like, dude, it was great. And as I'm walking away, another reporter goes up to him and is like, what was it like talking to that guy? Like, all derogatory. And he goes, listen, he got like right in her face. He's like, listen, that is Pick Boy. It is an honor to be spoken to by Pick Boy. And she was like, oh my God, like he totally like backhanded her right into place. And it was just hysterical because that was the thing, is like the people who knew me knew like, oh, I get the gag. Flash forward all these years later, I remember I was standing in line to get in, because you have to go through these massive checkpoints at this point, metal detectors, the whole 9 yards. And I'm standing there in costume, and like 3 lanes over is a camera guy. He's carrying like a tripod and a camera, and he's got his hands full, and he just kind of glances over at me, like very nonchalantly, and he goes, hey, Pick Boy, how many years is this for you? And I'm like, I think this is 6. He's like, yeah, this is like 8 for me. And it was like, I became part of like that press corps. Like I was one of the guys now. It wasn't, the whole thing. And that was really cool because like I said, it went from change. I really kind of changed the way that day is, for better or worse. And it was cool because the NFL, like I said, the NFL, it was a point where the NFL was the one who was asking me there. Nickelodeon didn't have any intention of covering the event, but the NFL, Sesame Street was calling them saying, we want to send Big Bird. And they said, no, the only costume character that comes is Pick Boy. So that was a cool moment when I know I beat out Big Bird to the big game.
That was the most amazing story I've ever heard. So you also, I think I remember seeing you a few times as part of the Kids' Choice Awards. And I
Yeah.
remember as a kid, the Kids' Choice Awards was like, I'm watching this. This is the biggest night of the year. I need to know if Drake and Josh is going to win best TV show, who has best hair, whatever. And looking back at it as an adult, and I just see those old clips with just thousands of screaming kids wanting to see Josh Peck get slimed. I'm like, oh my God, that looks terrifying. Are there parts of the Kids' Choice Awards that you absolutely loved, or were there parts where you're just like, yeah, I'm glad I'm never doing that again?
If they called me right now and said, would you do Kids' Choice Awards? I wouldn't be able to say yes fast enough.
Really?
Kids' Choice Awards is hands down the best night of the year. It is awesome. I think I did 12 of those. Yeah, I did 12 of those. And that was, when I was getting towards the end there, I made it very clear, you got to give me an even 10. After that, I'm okay. And then, maybe it was 11. I can't remember. I've never been good with numbers, in case you guys haven't figured that out, which is why I'm in TV. No, Kids' Choice Awards, there isn't anything bad I could say about Kids' Choice Awards. It was always the highlight of my year. I loved doing it. And again, that was one of those things that when we started it with You Pick Live, there was never a pre-show orange carpet show. We were the ones that started that. And I remember the first year we did it, I got towards the end of the orange carpet, after the celebrities came down, I challenged Garbaggio and Antonio to a race down the carpet just to piss off the press corps. We had a little stage that in the first year we did it, there was a little stage that our prop guy made at the end of the carpet. They would walk down, and then it was just one step up, a little square stage, and that was the whole pre-show. There was no what you see now where it's like glitz and glamours and all this crazy stuff, and they shut down city blocks. The little stage, they bought white carpet, and the prop guy, he forgot to get orange carpet to run up onto the thing, so he went and got orange paint and a roller brush and painted the white carpet, and every celebrity walked off with orange paint all over their shoes. Yeah, it was awesome. That was one of those great moments. And then of course it just, like I said, it exploded and it became what it became. And I really been very fortunate. Like my involvement with the Kids' Choice Awards, that was really when Kids' Choice Awards became like the number one ticket in Hollywood. Like everyone wanted to come to that show, and I was right in the thick of it. They had me do the pre-show, and then I would do the backstage live show, which was awesome. That to me was the best. All of those things were great. The backstage live show was great because they were like, we don't have a script, and I'm like, perfect. I don't like scripts, and I just, as you can see, I can talk and fill time. So they would just go, okay, go. And they turned the camera on me, and I would just shoot my mouth off for 2 hours while people were coming on and off the stage. I'd stop everybody. I'd heckle everybody until I got the interview. And it was awesome, and that was always great. I love doing Kids' Choice Awards.
Do you have an orange blimp?
I don't. I don't have an orange blimp. I've never been out of all the stuff I've done for Nickelodeon, I've never once been nominated for anything.
Not even like a lifetime achievement blimp?
Nothing. To make matters worse, Xander, thanks for laughing at me. To make matters worse, they've never let me on stage. They would I asked almost every year, can I please present an award? And they would say no.
That's shocking.
Jeff, who do we have
yeah.
who do we have to
Like,
call?
did you? Yeah. I was about to ask if you ever hosted one, but they
No.
don't even want you on stage. That's crazy.
Yeah, the most, I think the closest I got was, I think it was after the first season of Brain Surge. I did the pre-show, and then they brought me in to do the seamless. I was out on the carpet. I say, hey, blah, 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 blah. The show's about to start. I got to head inside. I threw it over to someone down the carpet. I ran inside and stood like front and center with the stage behind me and said, and did the opening, like, this is the moment you've been waiting for. And it was like perfectly timed out where I had to vamp until they pointed to me, and then I would go, the Kids' Choice starts right now. And then all the lights would be, that's the closest I ever got to getting on the stage, presenting, doing anything. I was pre-show, live backstage show, post-show, always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
They should have let you fly off the helicopter with Matt Hoffman. I don't know
Oh,
why I don't know why I still remember that, but I remember Matt Hoffman biking out of a helicopter.
Yeah, he biked out of the helicopter. I did. There was a year where I did get to host the slime stunt. It was the wrestling one with the Big Show, Miz, and there was like one or two other wrestlers. And that was funny because I went to the rehearsal. We were walking through the rehearsal before we were going to shoot it. And I don't know if you guys are WWE fans at all, but the Big Show is every bit of 7 foot something, maybe weighs a ton. I don't know. He's huge. Like each finger's like a gherkin pickle. He's just this, everything about him is enormous. And so during the whole slime wrestling thing, he's going to do this. He's going to throw that person into the ring, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, so at that point, I'll present. I go, okay, at that point, like after you dispose of all them, I'll come up and I'll present you with the belt. And he looks me square in the eye and he goes, it's not a belt. Belt holds up your pants. It's a championship. I'm like, understood. It's like, don't make that mistake twice. So he goes, oh, yeah, I'll grab the championship. I'll hold it up, the title, whatever he called it. And, he'll do this. And at that point, when he holds it above his head on the right and left turnbuckle, we had giant hydraulic hoses that were just going to blast him with slime. And I told him, I go, okay, look, when that green stuff starts flying, I'm telling you, don't move. Like, let it hit you and then don't move, especially with these wrestling boots, which are slick bottoms. That stuff's, you'll go down faster than a one-legged cat trying to run on a frozen pond. I promise you, it's super slick. And he didn't heed my warning. So when we went live and he got blasted, he started like moving around. And sure enough, I'm standing like shoulder to belt height next to him. And he's just, whoa. And he puts his arm out to like save himself from falling. And of course, his arm is going across the front of my chest. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to try and hold you up because I'm just going to fall underneath you and get crushed. So I step out of the way. He just completely falls to the ground. And then I contemplated for a second, like, oh, geez, I need to pin him. Like, I need to pin him and take the title. And then I realized, like, very quickly that was probably a bad idea. So I just like got down on the ground and made slime angels with him. But yeah, that was a fun go around.
What was the first year they did that? Because all I remember is I remember I wouldn't use the internet for a lot as like a 7 or 8 year old. But I'm pretty sure I was voting, right? I think you voted online for the Kids' Choice Awards.
I think there was probably some online voting. I know for You Pick Live, we were definitely doing the online voting. We were, right. I think, like kind of the first. You look at it now, and like that stuff's commonplace. But we were doing that before anyone was doing that kind of thing. And that's the other thing. That was legit voting. We never faked that. We put 3 Nicktoons up. Whatever one got the most play, that was what won. There was only like a handful of times we had to finesse it, like if we were pre-taping because like, oh, we're going to fly on that day to get out to Kids' Choice Awards. Like we'd have to pre-tape. So we would maybe like finesse the voting a little. But but it was all, we always kept it, whether it was going out into Times Square, like what challenge do you want to see Brent and Candace do? And that was always tricky because if it was like, hey, do you want to see Brent and it was the dead of winter. If you want to see Brent and Candace go out into Times Square, sell ice cubes, sell bathing suits, or sell fans, we know only one of those is going to win, but we shot all three and edited all three. Two of them never saw the light of day. Like there's a ton of stuff that you guys never saw, but it was ready because if it won, we needed to be ready. It was never faked. We kept the integrity of the kids voting, and the kids' control was legit all the time.
Did your experience at Nickelodeon have an impact on you as a father today?
Dun, dun, dun. I don't know. Do you think my experience on Nickelodeon? You don't know? It's a good answer. Totally, 100%. Again, like I said, I always took it very serious when I was doing stuff on Nick before I had kids, because I had that realization of like, oh, this people like you, like this eventually comes full circle, and I will have these conversations. And that was always very intriguing to me. Again, I had Fred Rogers as my commencement speaker, and I was like, hey, is there a time when, is what we're doing impactful enough that I can be that for another generation? So that was always very important to me. But now that I have kids, it's even more important. It carries a lot more weight. Like the show I'm making for Nick Jr., I want to make sure, like there's things that are important to me as a father, like problem solving, having kids, independent thinking. And I make sure that I work that sort of stuff into that curriculum for that show, because again, I'm in a position where I can inflict my will on the youth. So, and that's fine. I mean, like the people that know me well, like when they watch that show, they go, that's you all the way. Like your humor is all over it. And, it's very Jeff. So, which is cool. I mean, to me, that's some of the best compliments I can get, and there was on the hosting thing, years ago, I was standing in the back yard with my neighbor as our kids were all playing. And he, at this time, Figure It Out was on the air. And he goes, oh, the other night, like I thought you were in my house because like I was upstairs in the kitchen doing something, and like I heard your voice downstairs, and I realized, and like I walked down, it was just the family was watching you as Figure It Out. And it was like so weird because it was like, it's the same. It's like, it sounded just like, oh, it's you. And I go, that was one of the best compliments I ever got on my hosting, because that's what I've always positioned myself as. Like, I do the best imitation of Jeff. I do it better than anybody else. I'm not an actor, and that's what I do. So what you see is what you get. So the fact that he felt like that it was as natural as that was a huge compliment. So, it's a good question.
Jeff, this might have been the most fun interview we've ever done. Before we let you go, where can the people find you and what you're doing and what you're working on?
Currently, like I mentioned earlier, I'm executive producer on a show called Ryan's Mystery Playdate, which is Nick Jr. show. So it's probably a little bit low, not necessarily the demographic that you want to watch, but again, if you're looking for that just really stupid, immature humor, and you have kids in the 3 to 5 range, this is the show for you. And then, I always have a few things that I'm always out developing and pitching, and, hopefully whether it's another game show or another kids show, but my goal is to continue being that guy in kids TV. If I can keep doing that, I'm going to be a happy guy,
Awesome. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Pete. Xander, thank you guys so much. It's always great
to the blast.
Be able to meet fans. And like I said, if you guys ever need anything, feel free to give me a shout. You know how to get a hold of me. And maybe there's part 2, part 3 of this interview.
Don't give us that idea, because we will milk this segment dry.
Look, I've got stories for days. I've got tons of stories. I'll give you the inside scoop on all of it. So,
all right, talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, set it up. We'll grab some burgers. I got questions for you guys. I've seen some stuff online. I've seen some stuff on.
What?
Okay.
Yeah, you research.
Of course, I've done my research. What, you think I'm a rookie? Or you think this is Bush League? Come on, this is not amateur hour over here.
Jeff has put us on the hot seat.
I've seen a picture. Of I believe it's Pete with his face painted orange and black.
Yes.
And he's a super fan. And is it? I want to say the Cougars, because I don't think that's right. Is it? What was your high school?
We
I
were
know
the
it's
Warriors.
Warriors. But yeah, you would heckle the other teams. You got kicked out for doing that, asked to stop at the basketball games. We come from a long line of fans. It was a family thing that you just continued it. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. So no, I appreciate it, guys. It's like I said, this was my pleasure. It's awesome.